on May 29th, South Africa will go to the polls 20 years after the first democratic elections in 1994, a watershed in world history when South Africans went to vote after they had defeated apartheid after a multi-century struggle against various colonial forces. And they will be at the polls again 20 years later. A number of critically important issues at stake, both inside the country and also relevant to South Africa's role in the world. So we are very, very honored to be joined here on the show once again by Phakamile Hlubi-Mujola, who is the national spokesperson for the National Union of Metal Workers of South Africa, NUMSA, South Africa's largest trade union. Pax, as always, thanks so much for being here with us.
Good evening. I'm so happy to be on your show. I love watching your show. I was totally fascinated by the conversation you guys just had with Loki. First of all, I'm a huge fan. I've been following his work, not just as a musician and an artist, but also as an activist. He is a brilliant thinker of our time and of our generation. And I'm not surprised about this information warfare. And I really think we should have a conversation about that, because he's not the only person who's been targeted with these dodgy reports about Russian bots. Some of us have also been targeted. And it just shows you that clearly the enemy has identified that the work that we're doing in terms of providing alternative platforms and real information about what's really happening to the majority, which is the working class in all over the globe, is having an impact. And I think that's how we should see it.
No, I think that's very, very true. Sorry, Ronnie, go ahead.
No, please.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, I'm glad you actually started that way, because I think this is an interesting element of the South African elections. I know you all in NUMSA, who just had a very comprehensive statement about the elections, have pointed to that I feel a lot of people don't know. It's certainly something talked about around the world, but the rise of right-wing parties and right-wing forces. And I think that's an interesting aspect of what's happening in South Africa during these elections, when, of course, the world is looking at South Africa around Palestine in particular, around Cuba, other issues, as playing sort of a vanguard role in pushing back against, the genocide and the attempts to strangle these countries. So I was hoping you could actually just talk a little bit about that, because we haven't heard much, I think, in the West as it concerns the elections there and what's happening in terms of the political landscape.
Oh, absolutely. South Africa has been a major focus, especially geopolitically, because of the positions that we've taken, because we have been very clear that what's happening in Palestine is a genocide. We're very clear that Israel is an apartheid state. NUMSA's position, in fact, is that the people of Palestine have the right to resist. And because of our history with a brutal apartheid force, which was also attempting to subjugate and eliminate the Black population here, we completely understand the fact that Palestinians have the right to resist by any means necessary. I absolutely love what your co-host said to Piers Morgan the other day when he asked her, that stupid question that he always asks, do you condemn Hamas? And she said, I absolutely loved how she characterized it. Thank you so much, my sister, because you were right on point to say that I will support anyone who murders their slave masters. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's not even a question. So, the fact that South Africa has taken this position has created a situation where we are now a focal point geopolitically, and there's a lot of pressure on us in terms of our foreign policy position. And we've seen, very, very directed attacks at the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister Naledi Pandor, with regards to the position that South Africa has taken on the ICJ. So NUMSA is very aware of the geopolitics and what that means for us. But more than anything, we are also obviously aware of the conditions affecting workers on a day-to-day basis in this country. We're aware that the 1994 transition from apartheid to so-called democracy did not give us economic power. It was a political transformation in only. The wealth of the country remains in the hands of the mostly white minority. Yes, there are some wealthy black billionaires, but the point is that by far the majority of people who own the economy in this country are white. And the majority of black people still have not tasted the fruits of democracy. They are locked out from, quality healthcare. They're locked out from quality education. They still live in informal settlements and subhuman living standards. And we've said that these are conditions that this ANC government has created through neoliberalism and by its refusal to genuinely transform the economy. But having said that, we've also noted that there is this, we can almost say like consolidation of right-wing parties. Parties like the Democratic Alliance, which is the current official opposition in South Africa. Parties like the Democratic Alliance, parties like Action SA, Build One South Africa, Patriotic Alliance, Freedom Front Plus, ACDP. These are all organizations that have a lot of funding from the very same people who control the South African economy, who want the economy to remain the way it is. They get funding. And these are the same people, by the way, who drive a very, very particular agenda from a geopolitical perspective, which is, to defend Israel, to defend Ukraine, to pretend that this is simply a war between Ukraine and Russia and not a NATO-sponsored war. And they want to interfere in our elections. They want to interfere in our politics. But the worst out of the bunch that I've just mentioned is the Democratic Alliance. Not just in terms of their foreign policy outlook, which is very much pro-Israel, but also because they are completely anti-Black and anti-working class. When you look at their manifesto, it's really about, taking us back to where we were before 1994, before workers were able to secure many, many rights and protections that we've had to fight for over the last 30 years. And as a union, we've taken a position to say, these right-wing organizations, we're warning you workers, do not vote for these right-wing organizations. You will deepen your suffering.